Hi, and welcome to the Unreal Engine News and Community Spotlight. The ever-increasing role of technology in our daily lives has dramatically altered how we function as a society. To some, it is at the core of our advancement towards a highly optimized and universally beneficial utopia. To others, an over-reliance on technology means a compromised future and perhaps a threat to humanity for all. These possibilities are usually tackled from the broader perspective of society as a whole, but the team at Daedalic is more interested in how they can potentially impact us on an individual level. In State of Mind, you experience a dystopian future through the eyes of lead character Richard Nolan, as you embark on a quest to put the fragmented pieces of your existence back together. While State of Mind's distinct visual style has allowed it to become instantly recognizable, however, what exactly players can expect from this unique experience in terms of story and gameplay has remained somewhat of a mystery throughout development. Our team recently caught up with State of Mind's author Martin Gantifer of Daedalic to discuss these aspects of State of Mind and to find out more about the role Unreal Engine has played in bringing the project to life. Follow the link below for the full interview. Last night marked the annual Develop Industry Excellence Awards, which celebrate the best and brightest European game developers and service providers, focusing on creativity, teamwork, inspiration, and innovation. It was an exciting evening filled with not only anticipation for developers, but also World Cup fans, as the semifinal collided with the awards reception. Although Croatia walked away with the victory, there was a lot to celebrate in British city of Brighton. We are humbled to receive the Best Engine Award for UE4. It is an honor to be recognized by our peers in the industry. We'd also like to offer many congratulations to the team at Ninja Theory, the amazing folks behind Hellblade, for running away with the evening. Not only were they awarded for their music and writing design, they walked away with both the Best Indie Studio and Studio of the Year awards. We also want to congratulate Supermassive on their win for gameplay innovation in Hidden Agenda. Hats off to all the Develop Award nominees and recipients. This morning, Epic Games has announced a sweeping change to the Unreal Engine marketplace, whereby creators on the store will now receive 88% of their product sales, an increase from the common 70-30 split of other digital stores. This new 88% developer, 12% store revenue split applies to all Unreal Engine marketplace transactions, past, present, and future. In addition to implementing the policy for future sales, Epic is paying out all marketplace sellers retroactively, applying the more creator-friendly 88% rate to previous transactions dating back to the store's 2014 launch. Thank you to all the incredible creators that are part of our Unreal Engine community. We can't wait to see all the amazing projects you work on next. Now on to our weekly karma. These folks are knocking it out, helping their fellow developers with problems and issues they're encountering. So thank you for that. We want to give a huge shout out to Every Nun, Mighty Enigma, Zazar Lalichi, Dijo, Thompson N13, Shadow River, Unfathomable, Darkwind Richard, Redbox, and Centurias. Our first community spotlight for this week is a project called Hue Defense. It's a tower defense game released earlier this week, actually. In Hue Defense, your job is to defend Hue Land, a natural paradise with the most complex and corrupted government in the world. You'll fight against corrupt politicians and their supporters, whether at borders, fields, or cities, and you have the chance to customize your defense strategy with several upgradable towers and enhancements. Just love the look and feel of this game. It's just has such a fun and exciting energy to it, and I hope you all will check it out. Our second community spotlight for this week is a project called Skyturn, City in the Skies. ArtStation was hosting a Wild West challenge, and Skyturn is a beautiful, gorgeous scene. I love the various elements, the balloons, and the fun that they've captured in the scene that they've set up here. So great work to this style, and just absolutely love this environment. Our third and final project for this week is a short film called The Abyss. It's a sci-fi thriller set on an abandoned ship. The film itself is presented through the lens of a body cam retrieved from a rescue worker who is investigating this ship. You'll have to watch the full film, just 11 minutes, to find out what happens. The short looks great and is certainly very suspenseful. There's also a making of video if you'd like to see how the scene was built out. Great work by the folks here. All right, thank you very much. That's our news and community spotlight. Hi, and welcome to our Unreal Engine live stream. I'm your host, Amanda Bott, and with me we have Wes Bunn, Senior
Hello,
Technical Writer, and Tim Slager, other Community Manager. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us today. We're going to talk about live link updates in 420. So you want to give a brief overview of what we're going to dive into today?
Sure. In 4.19, we introduced the live link feature, which allows you to connect external applications and stream data from those into the engine in real time. I've given some talks in the past showing you how to do a Maya connection to UE4. So today what we're going to talk about is some of the stuff that's coming for 420, and that's support for Motionbuilder. So we're going to connect Motionbuilder, show you how to set that up. It's a little bit different than Maya from the Motionbuilder side, but once you get in the Unreal Engine side, it's pretty similar. But we'll go through the process together so that you can see how it's done. Then also, we also introduced some new blueprint nodes. So previously, when working with LiveLink, you had to go through the LiveLink UI window and set up a connection manually. With these blueprint nodes, you can now do that automatically. So you can add a LiveLink blueprint component to any actor blueprint. And there's several different nodes and functions that you can call in there to automatically set up connections for you. And that's great because you can then use that in packaged projects as well. So if you package up your game, and you want to stream in data, it could be from Maya. It could actually be from a motion capture source as well. You can stream in data into your package project as well. So I'm not going to show you motion capture stuff today. We could talk about it a little bit later, but I'll show you the Motionbuilder stuff and some of the new blueprint stuff.
All right.
And that's all coming in 420?
It's all 420 stuff. It's actually available now if you have the preview. You can start messing around playing with the stuff currently. 420, when 420 drops, we'll also have documentation support for it as well. So everything that we cover today, you'll be able to find on our doc pages.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Well, why
Let's
don't we
get
dive
to
on
it.
in?
Yeah.
Jump right into it.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're looking at here is Unreal Engine on the left and Motionbuilder on the right. What we're going to do is set up a connection inside of Motionbuilder, stream in just the mannequin, because I don't have any other characters to play with right now, but we'll stream in the mannequin, stream in an animation from Motionbuilder to UE4 so that we can scrub through it, manipulate the camera in Motionbuilder, and have it update inside of UE4 in real time as well. If you've ever watched any of the live link talks that I've given in the past, it's very similar to Maya, just the setup is a little bit different on the Motionbuilder side. For those of you that are Mobu guys out there, hopefully you'll find this useful. So the very first thing that we're going to need to do is enable the LiveLink plugin, which we can do from the Edit and Plugins menu. And that window popped off over screen, so I'm going to drag that in. Under Animation, we're going to go down and enable the LiveLink plugin here. So I probably should have did this from the start, because we're going to have to restart the editor, but it shouldn't take too long. But I did want to show this.
You want to show them exactly what they're going to expect.
Yeah, so let's go restart the editor. Now that we've enabled that, take just a second. It's not a big project, so it should load right up. Whenever you enable plugins, you're going to have to restart. So here we are, and let's just double check. It is enabled, perfect. So let's go ahead and bring this back up and shift it over there. So now that we have the LiveLink plugin enabled, that'll give us access to the LiveLink connection window here, which we didn't have before. We're going to use this in a moment. I'll show you how to use this in a moment. So what we need to do now that we have the LiveLink plugin enabled is set up the Motionbuilder side so that we can stream in content from Motionbuilder to UE4. Again, what we're going to be using is just the mannequin. We're going to stream in an animation into the engine from Motionbuilder. So the first thing that we'll do is we're going to need to go to, let me drag this over, the GitHub repository. This is covered in our documentation pages as well. There'll be a blog post that will cover this as well where you can get your hands on this, but if you go to the GitHub repository, you can download the plugin for Motionbuilder. Pre-built plugins are available. There's, I think it's 16, 17, and 18 are all included inside of this zip file. So once you download that and extract it to somewhere on your computer, which I've already done, inside of Motionbuilder, you can then go to Settings and Preferences, and we're going to go to SDK, and we're going to add that folder containing our content, which I just placed it here on the desktop, right here. And we'll click OK. And once we do that, we can click OK. It's going to give us a little confirmation message here. Anytime we make changes like this, we're going to have to restart Mobu as well. So going to have to restart Mobu real quick. So let me just close this out and bring it back up.
The whole process,
Yep.
beginning to end.
Yep. I know, right? So it's loading off screen. It actually loaded in the plugin. You'll actually see it when it's initializing that it's loading in the plugin. Let's go ahead and bring that over so we can see it. And let's dock it like so. And when we do that, we're going to be able to go down to the devices section here. And let's actually just make this big so we can, because we're going to be working in here for a moment. In the devices section, we now have this UE live link. I think that we could drag into the viewport. When we drag that into the viewport, that's going to give us the ability to define what inside of our viewport that we want to stream into the engine. Now, we don't have anything in there just yet, so I'm not going to drag it in just yet. I'm going to add the content that we want to stream first. So I'm going to go to File and just bring in our character. Let's go to Open. And I just exported the mannequin from UE4 so that we have something to look at. Let's just bring this up. So this should look very familiar if you've worked with any of the third-person or template projects. The mannequin here, we just have a walk cycle that we're going to stream into the engine. And let's go ahead and add, let's also add a camera as well, because we're going to have a second camera that we can switch to inside of the engine. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go up here, Elements, and let's just drag in a camera. So. And you can position this camera wherever you want. You can add things like lights and other things, other static meshes or skeletal meshes, anything else that you want to stream into the engine that may or may not have animatable properties. Like, for instance, our camera, we could change parameters on the camera, stream those over, and change those as well inside of Mobu and see it reflected inside of UE4 as well.
So even your camera will carry over?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's awesome.
So we do have the editor active camera, but we're going to have a second camera that we can switch to as well.
Gotcha.
So say, for example, we have the editor camera that is our working camera, but then we have a second stationary camera that we want to switch to get a different perspective.
Like a top-down view.
Kind of, yeah. You could totally do that.
That's awesome.
So let's go ahead and just kind of move it up a little bit, kind of position it somewhere so it's not looking at the floor. I'm not going to super spend a lot of time on this, but to give you an idea, move it over in front, something like this. Let's get the interest, camera interest, and move that up to maybe.
What is camera interest?
So it's like pointing at that particular location.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a very interesting camera.
Yeah, exactly. But at least we could switch to it. I could also probably pilot it and then set it up exactly as I want, but for some reason that's where we're looking. Like so. Okay, so we have a camera, we have a skeletal mesh in here. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the devices section and take our UE live link. And we're just going to drag that into the viewport. So when we do, it's going to give us a new window down here. Scoot all this stuff over. This allows us to define what from our scene that we want to stream into the engine. So to do that, what we're going to do is click this little ellipses icon here. And I forgot it did that. Crops it off screen, which is not very useful for you guys. Let me go ahead and just do this so you can see. All right, let's try that again. Okay, so now we can select from our scene what we want to stream over. So I'm going to expand this a little bit. And we're going to choose the root, which is our character. And we're also going to choose that camera that we added as well.
It's giving you all the objects in that scene.
Mm-hmm. And we'll hit enter. And let's go ahead and maximize this again. And you can see it's been added here. Once we click add, it's added both the root of our character, and the camera as well. Now there also is the editor active camera, which is our camera that we're using here. That's going to be streamed automatically into the engine. We can turn that on and off and just call it and reference it by the name editor active camera. It's very similar to Maya, works the same way.
So if you add more things to this scene, do you have to go back through this process of adding?
Yes, yeah, you can just come here and just click
And then
what
just
else
add
you want to
another
add.
object?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever else you want to add. The great thing is, too, if you have multiple cameras, you can come into the subject name here and rename those. So you can
Oh, I
have front
gotcha.
camera, back camera, whatever you want. In fact, I'm actually going to do that now because root is not very descriptive, so I'm going to change this to character. So, and the name that you see here, the subject name that you see here, will also appear inside of the engine as
So
the
it
subject
carries that
name.
over as the
Yeah,
name.
so you'll see that as well. Now, there's a couple fields here. We already talked about subject name. This is the name that will appear inside of Unreal Engine. The stream type, you can see that it kind of automatically detects based on what it is you're trying to stream. So here we have a skeleton hierarchy for a character. Camera has camera properties that
Right.
we can stream in. It's all pretty straightforward. There is one thing to note, though, however, with skeleton hierarchy, It's only going to stream bones. So if you have something parented under a bone that's not actually a bone, it's going to omit that. If you wanted to stream something that's not a skeletal, a bone or part of the skeletal mesh, you could use full hierarchy. That'll stream everything.
Everything that's
yeah,
that attached to that object.
yeah, pretty straightforward. So one
Well,
thing.
by default, it's skeletal.
Yeah,
Okay.
whenever you do a skeletal mesh, yeah, it's skeletal. You can also disable or enable it right here from the active button, just enabling these or disabling these.
Gotcha. And that's done real time.
Mm-hmm.
So if I check that box, it's gone from UE4.
Yes, it's just not going to stream it over. Once we have this set up, so we have the content that we want to stream over, we're going to click the online button here. So it's currently red. Once we click that, it's going to turn to green to let us know that we are streaming that over. There is one setting that you're probably going to want to change inside of Motionbuilder, and that's way down here at the bottom under System. So let's go and open that up. This Always Refresh Viewer, you're going to want to enable this. It's kind of like a throttling performance whenever the Motionbuilder loses focus. That's going to throttle what's going on in the background, so you're going to want to always refresh. It's a similar setting that we have inside the engine that you're always going to want to use whenever you're using LiveLink.
And so here we're actually seeing it's streaming 60 frames a second over to UE4.
If you lose the LiveLink window, like we just did, you switched off it, you can find that again under the devices right here. So if you want to bring it back up, it's right there.
Nice.
So we're ready to stream into the engine now. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop this over like that. And what we're going to do is come inside of UE4. We'll go to LiveLink. We'll add a source now. Okay, message bus source. And now you can see that we have Mobu LiveLink. Now, it is pointing to our source machine here. You could do this over the network as well.
That's awesome.
So you could have another machine streaming in data and point to that as well. Let's go ahead and click this since this is the option.
Will that work only locally? Or can you do that across? So if I'm working remotely?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure on that. I have not tried that. Something I should ask our engineers on and see, because that'd be good to note that in the docs. I'll double back on that. So let's go ahead and choose this so that we can establish that connection. And when we do, you can see we have the source type is Mobile LiveLink. Here's all the subjects that we're streaming in. Again, there's the editor active camera, which comes by default. We have our character and the additional camera that we added. So we can now preview stuff inside of UE4. If we go to the content browser, for example, we load up our skeletal mesh. Let's just go to mesh. So let's pop this up here. What we're going to want to do to preview is to come to the preview scene settings tab, change the preview controller type down to LiveLink preview controller. And subject name is going to be the same name that you provide over in Mobu here. So we change that name to character. So I'm going to change this to character. So, and you can see that our character actually updated to the pose now. In fact, if we scrub through, should see
That's spectacular.
it actually working. So the other thing that we could do is we could enable camera sync. So if we enable this, it's going to pop to the camera perspective that we use inside of Mobu as well. So it's super easy to set up. But it has tons of potential. It gives you the opportunity to iterate on your content rather than exporting it from Mobu, bringing it into the engine, checking to see if it works. Oh, you're not happy with it, going back, making those changes. So it's a huge workflow benefit.
You can also see your lighting in real time. And
And also, if you have physics applied to your character, like little dangly bits and things like that, you can preview that as well.
I love the fact that this industry has dangly bits as nomenclature. It's spectacular.
Right?
We talked about that with Jay last week,
Yeah.
with dangly bits.
Did he say dangly bits?
Yeah,
too?
this is week 2 of 2.
Awesome. So we have our camera here. We also added that second camera, so we could, like, if we go to this and say, make this the current camera, it'll switch to that. Didn't really change that much because we were already in that perspective, but you could lock a camera away to see, like, certain things if you wanted to as well, which is super handy. So that is connecting Mobu to UE4. It's super straightforward. What I did want to jump into now is some of the other things that are coming, and that's going to be more on the blueprint side of things with the LiveLink blueprint component. So we're going to take a look at that. Because up until this point, what we've been able to do is make connections via this window here, via the LiveLink UI window. But with the blueprint component, you can do this all automatically. You don't have to use the LiveLink window anymore. One other thing that I did want to show really quickly, since I'm here, let's go ahead and take our skeletal mesh here. And we previewed that inside of the editor here, but we can also preview at runtime. I'll just show this really quick because it's pretty easy to do. So we take our skeletal mesh here and we create an animation blueprint out of it. Like so. And I'll just use the default name, which is fine. And let's just maximize this. So this is going to be the moment-to-moment pose that our character is in. We do have the live link pose node. So, and it's just going to take in a subject name, which is character, which we called it. We just call this character. The one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, but hopefully we can get adjusted maybe in the future, is that this is case sensitive and context sensitive.
Okay.
So you have to be very careful of what you type. So I've actually given a demo where I've actually had a typo and it didn't work, and I'm like, why is this not working?
Gotcha.
Oh, because I didn't type it.
It doesn't throw any errors.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it would be nice to have like a drop down, or I guess the best way to do it would be copy paste so that you don't make any typos,
Right.
like I always do. So once we compile, now it updates. Let's go ahead and just move that back over, and it'll update inside of our animation blueprint here as well. So
Oh,
realistically, you could click the record button and record an animation from it here if you wanted to. It's gonna the quality of the animation that is output from this method is largely going to depend on your connection status. If you have any kind of hitches or anything like
Got
that,
it.
it's going to result in your animation as well.
If your frames are dropping.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not really recommended for final animations, but I've told people in the past, if you're just prototyping stuff and just testing and you want to get your animation quickly into the engine, this could be a way you can do it. You just record right here, stream it in, and record it. But since we have an animation blueprint now, we could take this animation blueprint and plop it into the level like so.
Yeah, they were asking if they can stream like blend shape data into it as well.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
It's on my list.
Alright.
It's on my list. I know it comes up quite a bit. Actually, I don't need to max size that. Let's go ahead and do this. So if we play,
So now you can see this in Pi.
yeah, which is super cool.
That's awesome.
So if you have like a game and you're working and you want to test out animations, you can actually play your game and stream in animations and see what it would look like while your game's running as well. So
That's
huge,
awesome.
huge time saver. Super cool stuff. Let's go and stop this now.
So in that NMBP, will that node appear if that node will appear even if you don't have live link
If
enabled?
you don't have the Live Link plugin enabled, I don't think this node will show up.
Okay.
It's similar to the Live Link connection window.
Gotcha.
This window doesn't show up.
It comes
unless-
with the plugin.
It's in the, yeah, with the
Got it.
plugin.
Okay.
It comes in.
And if for some reason there's a disconnect between Maya and the engine, will you see any sort of error when you're trying to save anything, or?
I have not seen a disconnection happen. Usually what will happen is you'll see like the
just
connection
won't
will
update.
break. Yeah, it just
Got it.
won't update. If you have a character that's animating and you lose connections, it would
Got
just
it.
stop.
So it's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I don't think it throws up any errors. Although that would be good to have if we can throw up
Especially if you end up working across two machines or something.
Yeah, totally. So let me rehook that up. So let's take a look at the Live Link blueprint component. Let's go ahead and compile that. Okay, let's close these out. Oh, sweet, because that's awesome. So the engine just crashed, so let me bring that up again real quick. Fortunately,
You just needed to restart it. That's all.
yeah, right. That's what I was doing.
That's fine. It wanted to be restarted.
And none of that was saved too, right? So that's equally as awesome.
Yeah.
You just get to see the speed dev version
Right.
of it.
This is the new time trial.
Yeah, right. Fortunately, that won't take too long, I don't think. All we did was just right-click and create an animation blueprint.
Have we ever had like a speed dev? Like, I know game jams, but it'd be cool to like have like a time trial where let's like make a game.
Creating stuff.
And, like, you have an hour.
Oh, you
Go.
don't want me to do that, especially if I'm trying to describe what I'm doing, because I have the gift of gab. I will just talk for
That's-
days.
It's okay. Oh, you
But everybody has to just like
gotta name it, right?
walk through
Yeah.
and
So let's do this again.
that would be fun though.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Got
Oops.
your next live stream setup,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
Wessel. And the challenge is, can you do it while talking?
Yeah.
I would just be like, this is the mouse I am
That's
dragging,
my
and I am
break
clicking on
stuff,
this button
isn't
now.
Look at this graph.
Just
Isn't
break
it neat?
stuff.
Did you? Fantastic.
All right, let's see if I have to reconnect maybe.
Hopefully not. Bad.
Move sources. Let's
And
reconnect.
this is why Don't port your entire projects over to Preview Builder.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually the first time it's crashed for me, the first time using the preview build.
Yeah.
See,
Of course,
mean-
it always happens during like a live
Of
build
course.
or
Yeah.
something. That's usually how it happens.
it's like if your computer's broken, but you take it to somebody in IT, it suddenly doesn't
Yeah,
do
right.
the same
Same
thing,
thing.
right?
All right,
It works.
So we're back. Let's
Cool.
go ahead and just save everything just in case. Save all. All right, so let's take a look at the LiveLink blueprint component. Get out of here. All right, so we're going to create a new actor blueprint, just blueprint class, the actor type. And we'll just call this LiveLink BP, something like this. And we'll open this up. And we'll maximize this for now. So you can add it just as you would any other component. It's under the Add Component button, just LiveLink. Again, you'll have to have the LiveLink plugin enabled to see this, but here it is, the LiveLink component. So, and when you add that, it doesn't really add anything special. It just kind of sits inside of your blueprint and knows when LiveLink is updated. In fact, it gives you an event over here in the details panel that you can see called On LiveLink Updated. So we can go ahead and click this and add that as an event. And on the event graph, kind of takes the place of tick, so it just kind of looks for any kind of updates. Anytime there's an update, this will get fired, and it will allow you to do things with the component here itself. So if we take the component in, I've seen this as a question on the forums, how do I access the functions? You can get those from the actual LiveLink component itself. We'll take a look at some of those functions here together and set up some examples. So the first thing that you're probably going to look at is if we drag off of this and we look under LiveLink, there's a couple options under here. Mostly these two functions you're going to be working with. The top one, get available subject names, this one here, basically retrieves all the subject names that you've defined in your source. So in our Mobu example, we had our character, we had the camera that we added, and there's also editor active camera, so we have those. It'll return those for us. We could also get subject data, which is going to give us all kinds of information about the subject that we retrieve. So we're going to start with get subject data for now. And if we connect this up, so it's asking for the subject name. Again, we have to enter it. For this particular example, we'll take a look at the editor active camera. So we'll just say editor active camera, like so. Okay. And let's go ahead and let's add a camera so you can kind of see how this is going to work here. So I'm going to add a camera component as well. So, and what we could do is let's branch and make sure that this is a success, that we have retrieved the subject data called editor active camera. So just hold B and left click to create a branch. So, and what we're going to be looking for here, if we drag off of this, you're going to see that we have all kinds of different functions that we can use to get information about the source that we've defined. So you can get the curves, you can get metadata, you can get the root transform, transform by index, transform by name, the number of transforms, and transform the actual transform names themselves. All of these will be covered in our official documentation, what these do for you. Probably the one that you'll use the most is either root transform, or if you include any metadata or curves, it's probably going to be these top three that you're going to be using the most. For this example, we'll get the root transform. So, and you notice that it doesn't give you a standard transform output. It gives you a LiveLink transform because you can do additional things with this actual transform. So if we drag off of this and look under LiveLink, we have additional functions that we can call. So we can get children, we can get either in component or parent bone space, we can get parents, checking to see if they have parents, getting the name, etc. A bunch of different functions that you can call on this LiveLink transform. For this particular example, we'll say get component space transform. That'll give us the standard transform that we're used to seeing. What we could do is we could take like our camera, for example, just drag that in and say something like set relative transform or something. Like so. And if we zoom in, we plug this in. So essentially what we're going to be doing here is driving this camera inside of our blueprint here from an external source. So if we have our camera in here, there's our camera. And we go over to Motionbuilder, it should drive that particular camera now. So if you have animatable properties that you want to stream, you could do that this way. The best way to think of it is if you're doing anything that requires logic, you're probably going to do that inside of an actor blueprint with the live link component. If you're just streaming in animation data, you're probably going to do that inside of an animation blueprint using the live link pose node. In fact, if we add a skeletal mesh to this, we could say skeletal mesh, and we could say, let's use the mannequin. And we could also say to use our animation blueprint that we created, which is this one here. You can see it automatically updates to our pose. So again, it updates as well. So it's pulling from our animation blueprint the live link pose node data and streaming that in here as well. So what else can we do? Let's take a look at the event graph here. The other thing that we could do is set up automatic connections using the live link component. What we're going to do for this is, let's delete these nodes here. And let's say we right click and say event begin play. So at the start of play, for example. There's a couple different nodes that we're going to use to do this. We can say, let's see, it might be under the live link section. If you scroll down and look for live link, there we go. So here's all the different nodes that we can use too as well. But the one that we're going to be looking for is construct message bus finder. So we're going to use this node here. And essentially what this will do is look for a message bus source. It's going to give us an output of the live link message bus finder object reference. We're going to store this as a variable just so we have reference to it later. We can say reference, something like that. And then off of this, what you can do is get the available providers. So it'll search for any message bus sources that it has. And once it finds one, then you can automatically do a connection to that as well. So we could say, let's look under live link. Here we go.
And this is still on play.
Event begin play. So instead of using the live link window to define the message bus source, we're saying on begin play, create this message bus finder, and then we can use the node to get available providers. And then once we have one of those, connect to that provider. So it's doing all of that stuff for us automatically.
Gotcha.
Let me just take a look at my notes here, make sure I do this right. Again, everything that we're covering today will be in the documentation. So you can just take a look at our doc pages and or this video, because it should be out on YouTube by then. And you can follow along and do this again. So once we've searched for all the available providers, what we can do is, let's go ahead and get the length of that. So it's going to return the length of that. I'm going to branch just to make sure that we found one. And we'll just use the integer. So plugging that in, 1 being true, 0 being false. So if it's 1, then we found one, and we can actually connect to it. So if we say connect to provider, this will give us the ability to automatically connect to the provider that we found. So we'll need to drag off of our available providers here and just get one of those. If you have more than one, what you could do is iterate through, loop through all of them. Because this is an array, just loop through and filter by name and find the one that you want. For this particular example, we just have the one, so it should just work just like this. So we plug this in as the provider, like so. And we'll just add a little note here just at the end. So we'll say print string.
So you'll actually be able to get an output of C.
Yeah, just
to see the
that we're
connection.
connected. Yeah, I always use print strings just to verify things.
Can you pipe in the number of frames that it's streaming?
I don't think you can actually change that here. That might be something that we may expose in future updates.
Yeah.
That'd be something I could bring up with the engineers and see how viable that would be, and if people want to.
I
do
mean,
that.
yeah, that way you know if you're getting any frame drops through the stream.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, you could output information like that though. You could see like the actual frames that are being streamed in, and
Okay.
then you'd be able to see that as well. I think there's an example of that on our doc
Yeah.
pages. If not, I'll probably create one as well.
More work, sorry.
Thanks. So let's go and compile. So this is most of the script here that we'll need, and let's just dock this. there. Something like
We need to start doing these streams so if people have 2 streams with each monitor.
I know, right?
Makes it so much easier for you guys.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to remove it now so that we have no source types here. And what we'll do is we'll go to the content browser. Should bring our live link blueprint character in. And what we should see is that it will create a connection for us when we play. So it says connected. And let's scrub through. Yeah.
Awesome.
So now we don't need to use the live link window to actually establish the connection. It does it for us. And what's great is that you can package this project up now and
It'll be there.
yeah, it'll do it inside of your
You
package
just obviously need to run Motionbuilder prior to this work.
Correct.
Otherwise, the connection.
Yeah, if it's trying to connect a Motionbuilder, it will basically, it will do this version of the chain here. So it would fail at this point because it didn't find a provider.
Right.
And you could
Add a
outstream,
fail message to it, yeah.
You could also reroute the fail condition into, looping back and continuing to check. You could add
Got it.
delays. You could do,
Yeah,
pretty
whatever.
much anything that you want
Number
to
of
do.
blueprint things.
Yeah. What's also cool is that it also updates the live link window. So now you see it's added a source here as well inside of the live link window, and you could get information about the source and what subjects are being streamed in. There is one thing to note, though, however, with this. I'm actually going to do this. I actually just added this to the docs yesterday because I just noticed this. If I stop in the editor and I play again, it's going to add a second source type
Oh,
here.
interesting.
So whenever you do it in this method, whenever you connect to provider, there's a function that you can call because every time that you play in session, it's going to
You'll
add
get
a
a
new
new.
source. So what you're going to want to do is inside of your blueprints here, you're going to want to use probably an in play. So event in play, something like this. And what you're going to take is this source handle here. So this is the information about the source that you're connecting to. We're going to store this off. So I'm going to right click and promote that to a variable. We'll just call this the source handle reference, something like that. Connect that up. Perfect. And once we have that, we compile. We can then take this in, and there's some functions that you can call on this. If you look under the live link, you can get like the machine name, the source status, connection status, source type, is source valid still, and request shutdown. So this is probably what you're going to want to call whenever you in play. So if I request a shutdown, whenever we in play, like so, what we should see now is if we take these and remove all of those, like so, each time we play and we stop, it just creates the one source and
Got it.
deletes it. So best practice, whenever you're doing it in this method, you're going to want to request a shutdown on it as well.
But this also means that you now don't have a live link, right? So if you were to go into like the actual animation, you wouldn't be able to update through Motionbuilder.
Because the source is, if you're doing it at runtime or in packaged projects, probably this would be the best way to do it. If you're just testing things in editor, I
Just
don't
maintain
see,
them a
yeah,
manual
maintain them
link.
yourself, probably. That would probably
Got
be
it.
the best way because then you can add and remove sources as you need to.
Got it.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation. There's all kinds of other functions and stuff in here as well that, again, will be covered in our official documentation. I know I get a lot of questions about blend shapes. So I do want to touch on that. I did have a note about that. Let me bring up
Certainly
my note here. So this came straight from the developers because I asked them about this about a couple weeks ago when I gave another talk on LiveLink. Morph targets, the architecture is set up for this to allow it, but it's not actually hooked up in either the Maya plugin or Motionbuilder yet. If you have some C++ knowledge, you could probably do it yourself.
Okay.
But it is on our radar and something that we want to do in future updates. I don't have an ETA on when that's coming. But I've spoken with our team, and they want to do it, so I just don't have an ETA. as
Desired,
to when.
just
Yeah.
not scheduled.
The other question that I get sometimes is about mocap from some of our mocap friends out there. Actually, if you want to roll the video, there's a video that I was going to show here really quickly to show you an example of what else is possible with LiveLink. We showed this at GDC. If you have not seen the Siren demo yet, we're basically using LiveLink to stream in data from a mocap actor to a character inside of UE4 in real time. So if you want to take a quick look at that, we can show that real quick. So we showed that at GDC. That was one of our
Yeah.
big tech pieces that we did at GDC. We had several partners on that. We also did one with Andy Serkis. If you guys have not seen that, you can probably find it on YouTube. It's
Yeah.
pretty awesome,
Absolutely.
pretty amazing.
Brief
Uh,
candle.
Yeah. What was that? It was Macbeth. Is that what
Yeah,
he was doing?
it
Yeah,
was
it's pretty
Macbeth.
awesome. So we use LiveLink for that as well, streaming in data. The reason I pointed that one out was that we had questions about where to get the plugin that Vicon used for that. It's not actually on our side, it's on Vicon's side. Vicon has this plugin and they plan to release it for free. But if you're a customer with them, you can contact them directly and if you email them, they can give you the plugin. We don't have an ETA on their side when they plan to make the plugin publicly available to all,
Right.
but you can contact them to get the plugin on the Vicon side to set up your motion capture source and stream that in via LiveLink as well. There's one other thing that I wanted to touch on really quickly before we jump into Q&A. We do get questions about other applications, what other applications we support. 90% of the time my questions that I get are blend shapes, do we support those? And the other 10% is, do you support X application?
Right.
Currently, out of Epic, we have plugins for Motionbuilder and for Maya, but we do give you the source. If you look at our official documentation pages, there's a doc page on LiveLink plugin development. Again, if you have some C++ knowledge, you can develop your own plugins for any application that you want out there. You can use a message bus source route, which is what we've done with Motionbuilder and Maya. Or, like I said, the motion capture, they stream in content by exposing a source to the LiveLink client as well. But we are working on a plugin project, which should have some sample code that we want to give to you guys. David Hibbett's on our team is currently working on that. It's not production ready just yet, but we do want to release that to you guys in the future. I don't have an ETA for that as well, but all these promises I'm making, we're just not delivering.
We're writing them down.
He's like, I'm getting tools out for other people.
No, we do want to release that, and I've spoken with him about it. He just wants to clean it up and make sure it's ready for everybody. But that will give you the bare bones essentials to exposing a source to the LiveLink client so that you can do that yourself. And then you could do that for Blender. You could do that for any other application that you want. 3ds Max is another one that I get sometimes
Yeah.
as well. I think that's it. Again, everything's going to be covered on our documentations for 420. All of these features will become available in 420. The Motionbuilder files, again, you can get those from the GitHub repository. A link for this will be provided in the future with a blog post, and it'll be covered on our doc pages as well.
Cool.
So that's
Sweet.
all I got. 47 minutes. About.
Nice.
So yeah, if you have any questions,
yeah,
I'll try to
let's
answer some of
see.
those.
I think you hit most of them because a
Most
lot
of
of the
them.
questions were around
Blend
Blender or 3ds Max. Do you know? So we're currently working with, was it Motionbuilder 2017? Does it also work with older versions?
It works with 2016, 17, 18 out of the box, but again, we do give you the source so that you can develop for older versions as well. I don't have any personal experience in doing that, but if you're knowledgeable enough, you should be able to do that yourself. The same holds true to Maya as well, because I got that question. Maya is also 2016 and 17 and 18, but again, you can develop it for other versions if you want.
Older versions,
Yeah.
And maybe you touched on this a little bit. They were wondering if you could map the camera motion from Motionbuilder or capture motion to Matinee. Maybe those are two separate questions. But.
Capture cameras. Trying to think how that would. Yeah, you could do that. I haven't tried it, but I think you could do that. So we've added.
He believes.
Yeah, I believe we've added our characters to the scene here. In theory, if we play and we scrub through, are we still connected? Let's just double check. Yeah. So this is just an actor. So any actor can be recorded the sequence recorder. So you could have a camera as an actor,
Right.
like we have, control the camera externally in Motionbuilder and use sequence recorder to record everything that's happening inside of the editor. Should be totally doable. Yeah. I'm going to
Magical.
try that when I get back to my desk. But
I was like,
in theory,
now I need to know.
in theory, that should work. It's just an actor that you can record with sequencer. Because I've done that before. I've taken like this character, added it to sequencer,
Right.
recorded this, and then played it back as an animation in sequencer. So should be totally doable.
And they're asking also about custom rigs. I assume you could have. Can you have any rig set up? for your
As long
character?
as you have the skeletal mesh imported into the engine, that's the only caveat. You don't
Right.
have to have any animations for that particular rig inside of UE4. As long as you have the mesh inside of UE4, you can stream from your external source onto that character inside of UE4.
Cool. And this is probably a longer question, but we could briefly touch on it. Just sort of like a workflow with LiveLink and like animation blueprints. Like, could we touch on that, or is that a whole discussion in and of itself?
A workflow for animation blueprints. I'm trying to think. There's really, I mean, it's 2 nodes. It's not. There's really nothing else that you need to do to get it to work. It just depends on what you want to do with your animation blueprint. Because it is an animation blueprint, you could toss it on a character and throw that character in the level, or you could just drag the animation blueprint like we did directly into the level. To get it to work like we've done so far, all we've done is hooked up the LiveLink pose node in a character. There is some instances, I didn't touch on this here, but I've touched on it in previous talks talking about Maya. There is a retarget asset that you may need to use if your naming convention is different in your external application than it is in the skeleton inside of UE4. Recommend that you check out the Maya side of the LiveLink tutorials that I've done on YouTube. You could probably find them. But essentially what we're able to do with this retarget asset is remap any naming conventions that you're using externally to match the skeleton asset inside of UE4. So you may need to use one of these assets called a retarget asset. And it's just a simple blueprint. If we go here, let's just create it real quick because we got a little bit of time. It's of the LiveLink remap asset type.
Gotcha.
Okay, and when you open that up, there's a function in here called, oops, not a new function, but a overrideable function called get remapped bone name. And what you could do is take in your source bone name from your external application and then do something like, I know in previous examples I had to use like a split node. Let's use this. A split node, so you take in the source name, plug that in, and then, for example, we have a character that's named, character's name colon head, character's name colon arm. If you wanted just the actual bone itself, you could do something like this with a split node, and then just put in like a colon, and then take everything to the right of that so that it just uses just the arm, just the head, instead of the character's name every time. Because if you look at the skeleton inside of UE4, it's just the bone name itself. It's not prefixed by the actual name of the character. Sometimes you may see that based on how your content's set up. But we do give you the tools to remap those bone names if you need to. I know inside of Maya you can use like the namespace editor and change it that way if you want to as well, but give you multiple options.
Nice. Seems like there's a lot of really valuable applications.
Yeah, most of the time when I talk to folks about this feature, it's really just the iteration time on your animations. You don't have to go through the export-import process, which could be a pain, especially if you're in the middle of trying to develop your animations and get the final production-ready animation. You can tune and tweak it, see physics applied, put it in the real world, see what it's actually going to look like, interact with physics objects
Right.
with
I
it if you
think
need to.
running it in Pi was like when you were like, oh yeah, I can just run it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah,
Hold up.
even if you're doing like a cinematic piece and you have multiple characters that you're setting up for a cinematic that you want to eventually bring into the engine and light and do all of that, you could do all of your work inside of Motionbuilder or Maya or whatever application you want, and then use LiveLink to stream that data in and see what it would look like
So
before you do that full import. So super handy tool.
it's awesome. Well, that's pretty much all our questions that we've got. So
Did we
thank
talk
you.
about LT?
Huh?
Can you talk about LT?
A little bit, yeah, I suppose. So while we were talking about it, a bunch of people asked about it. I did a little bit of research, and the only reason Maya LT won't work is because it doesn't support Python, and the LiveLink requires
Scripts.
Python support
Scripts.
for it. So it won't work in the LT version.
Yeah.
So
So now you know.
the more you know.
Play the rainbow.
Yeah. I love that. Like that defined a lot of like growing up. Was
That
those
went,
weird-
that
like-
went over 90% of our audience's head, probably, because we just were so dated.
Well, it went over everybody's
Are you
head.
trying to say we're old?
No, he's trying to say that everyone else is young.
Younger, yeah.
See, it's
Okay.
that cup half full
I
kind.
don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know about this.
Either way, we have a cup.
Oh, yeah. As always, if you guys have any other additional questions, feel free to throw them in the forum post. I'll take a look at them and pass them along to our engineers, try to get responses as well.
Yeah, so we're always looking for more feedback on that. Let us know how you're using it, and thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure.
I've dropped the survey link into the chat, so if you would fill that out, we'd always love to know what topics you would like to see in the future, how we've done on each of our live streams. We're also going to start giving out T-shirts.
Ooh.
So each month we'll be raffling each month
Each week.
a T-shirt.
Yep.
You'll be entered into a raffle for a T-shirt for filling out the survey.
Yep.
So it's also
It's
a way to get
optional.
swag. I'll trade you feedback for T-shirts. How's that sound?
It's optional, but we do
Yeah,
need your email address.
Definitely
but
not required.
You don't have to. The survey we would love you to fill out, but definitely, you know, if you're interested in winning an Epic or an Unreal Engine T-shirt,
Yeah. Well,
put
you have
your-
to have filled out the survey and your email to be
Right.
eligible for that.
all things.
All
Yeah,
these
we-
rules.
oh, void where prohibited. I feel like we have to say that.
Yeah.
So.
Also, always check for your local UE4 meetups. Again, it's meetup.com/pro/Unreal Engine. There are lots of cool people, hopefully in your area, doing neat things and should be able to help you answer questions, work on projects. If not, you could start one. So, yeah, do that thing.
All of it.
Also submit your projects to the NVIDIA Edge program. I would love to be able, or to be honored to send you a 1080 Ti for the cool things you're working on, so make sure to submit your projects, and maybe one will show up on your doorstep. And, you want to talk about the demos?
Of course I want to talk about the demos. So each week we start the stream with a 5-minute counter. And right now we have four counters from different games that do speed development. That was a hard word to say. So if you're interested in submitting your project to us, we're looking for a 5-minute speed development, whether it's blueprints, whether it's coding, whether it's level design, whatever it may be. We just ask that you remove the cam from it. If you're streaming it on Twitch, we love your faces, but we want to make sure it's sans that. And then you may see your stream up or your demo up on our stream. Send that over to community@unrealengine.com, and we'll take a look at it. I can't guarantee it, but send it over, and we'd love to take a look at those things.
That's cool.
And you guys are awesome. This is today just is an amazing day. I think everyone's super happy, and this is a great stream to top it off with. So thanks so much
Sweet.
for joining
Yeah,
us,
my
Wes.
pleasure. My pleasure.
All right. And we'll see you on social, and see you next week. For
Oh yeah,
our
make
live
sure you
stream.
follow us on social media. I forgot to say that.
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
things. All right, we'll see you next week. Thanks
It's gonna
all.
stay like this.